For 18 years, George Bennett waited for the same thing every Sunday morning. A phone call from his son. 11:03 on Sunday morning. The call always came around this time. Michael always called between 11 and 11:30. 18 years of Sundays, never missed. Never late. But on this Sunday, the call didn't come. George Bennett is 71 years old, and for the past 18 years, his life has followed the same quiet pattern. Monday through Saturday, his days blend together. Quiet mornings, simple meals, the newspaper, walks around the neighborhood, occasional visits with old friends. But Sunday is different. Sunday is the day his son calls. Michael has been calling every Sunday without fail for more than a decade and a half. The call always comes around 11 o'clock. George sets his watch by it. After decades of raising Michael alone after his mother passed, after watching him grow into a man, go to college, start a career, get married, have a family of his own, this weekly call had become the thread that held them together across the distance between them. George had never said to Michael, "You have to call." He would never pressure his son. Michael had his own life, his own family, his own responsibilities. But Michael called anyway, every Sunday. And George waited for that call with a quiet anticipation that he never quite admitted to anyone. This particular Sunday morning began like all the others. George woke at 7, made his coffee, retrieved the newspaper from the porch, settled into his armchair by the window. The September light was beginning to shift toward autumn gold. He read the same sections he always read. He checked his watch at 10:47. Michael would call soon. George had learned the rhythms of his son's life through these calls. Michael always had time between his family's Sunday morning church and their afternoon activities. He would step outside, call his father, spend 15 minutes talking about nothing important and everything that mattered. How was Dad doing? Was Dad eating well? Had Dad gone to the grocery store? Dad needed to make sure he went to the doctor for his checkup. Had he scheduled it yet? Small talk that was not small at all. George loved these calls more than he had words for. But at 11:03, when George looked at his watch again, nothing had changed. The quiet house remained quiet. He set down his coffee. He folded his newspaper. He waited. By 11:15, George had moved to the kitchen. He was a practical man. Perhaps there was simply a delay. Michael's family had gotten busy. There was traffic, something minor. George rinsed his coffee mug and returned to the living room. At 11:47, George was holding his phone in his lap, waiting, still not upset, not yet, but aware that something was not as it always was. Time moved differently when you were waiting for something that didn't come. Noon arrived and passed. George ate a light lunch, returning to his chair. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. The afternoon sun shifted across the living room. George told himself various stories. Michael was busy. Michael would call later. There was no emergency. If there was, Michael would call. Michael simply had a different day this Sunday. But George had learned that exceptions in routine often meant something. His stomach felt slightly tight, though he tried not to focus on the feeling. By 4 o'clock, George could no longer pretend. The day was different. The call was not coming. For the first time in 18 years, his son would not call him on Sunday. George did not panic. He did not immediately call Michael himself. That was not how they worked. Michael was an adult. George had learned long ago that his son was capable of managing his own life. If something was wrong, truly wrong, Michael would reach out. George would not be the kind of father who demanded constant reassurance or explanation. So George sat in his armchair as the afternoon moved into evening. He did not turn on the television. He did not read. He simply sat and his mind moved through possibilities. Was Michael ill? Was there trouble with Michael's marriage? Was there an emergency with one of his grandchildren? Was Michael angry about something? Had George done something to offend his son without realizing it? Or was this simpler? Was this just life? Had Michael finally realized that a grown man with a family and a career did not have time for weekly phone calls to his elderly father? George pushed that thought away. Michael was not that person. Michael had shown up consistently for 18 years. But perhaps even the most devoted son eventually outgrows the habit. The daylight faded. George did not move from his chair. He watched the sky change color, from gold to orange to deep blue to darkness. The neighborhood outside grew quiet. He thought about Michael as a boy. He thought about teaching Michael to ride a bicycle. He thought about helping Michael through heartbreak over a girl in high school. He thought about driving to Michael's college graduation, standing with tears on his face, so proud he could barely contain it. He thought about the day Michael told him he was going to be a grandfather, the way his son's voice had sounded on the phone, excited, nervous, amazed. 18 years of Sundays, over 900 phone calls, each one a small promise that they still mattered to each other, that the distance between them did not mean the connection was broken. And now the call had not come. George sat in the darkness. He did not turn on the lights. The house felt very large and very quiet around him. At 7:15 p.m., there was a knock on the door. It was such a startling sound in the silence that George stood immediately confused. He moved to the door carefully. his joints stiff from sitting all day. Through the peephole, he saw his son. Michael was standing on the porch, still in casual clothes, looking tired and serious. George opened the door. "Michael, what's wrong? Are you okay?" "Is the family?" "Everyone's fine, Dad," Michael said quickly, seeing the concern on his father's face. "I'm sorry I didn't call." "Come inside," George said, stepping back. Michael stepped into the familiar house, but he did not sit down immediately. He stood in the living room, and George could see something working in his son's face. An emotion George recognized, but had not seen in years. Michael looked like he had when he was a boy and had done something wrong, and was struggling with how to explain it. "I need to tell you something," Michael said, "and I realized I couldn't tell you on the phone. I had to come here." George gestured to the couch. They sat. "Last week," Michael began, "my boss was talking about his father. His father is 84, and he said something that it stuck with me. He said, I thought I'd have more time to call him. And that was it. That was the whole thing. His father had a stroke 3 days later, and my boss can't have conversations with him anymore." Just like that. 18 years of weekly calls could have become the last conversation they ever had, and neither of them would have known it was the last one. George listened, and I realized, Michael continued, his voice thickening slightly, that I take our calls for granted. Every Sunday I call you and I think, well, there will be another one next week. But what if there isn't? What if one day is the last day and I'm too busy or too distracted to really appreciate it? George felt something shift in his chest. "I skipped calling today on purpose," Michael said. "Not to hurt you, but I needed you to understand how quickly that could become permanent. I needed you to feel what it would be like. And I needed to tell you that I don't take our Sundays for granted. Not really. They're the most important part of my week." Michael looked at his father. "I drove 3 hours to tell you that. To show up and remind myself that every Sunday is not promised. It's a gift, and I'm grateful for it every single time." George could not speak for a moment. His eyes were wet. He reached out and took his son's hand. "I was terrified something had happened to you," George said quietly. "I sat here all day imagining every possible thing that could have gone wrong." "I know," Michael said, "and I'm sorry for that. But I needed to show you something. I needed to show you that the thing you've been waiting for every Sunday, the thing you thought was ordinary and routine, is actually extraordinary. The fact that I can show up at your door on a random evening because I realize something important means something. The fact that we have this connection means something." They sat together in the quiet house. George did not try to say anything profound. He simply held his son's hand and understood something he had perhaps always known but could never quite articulate. That love is not measured in the grand gestures. It's measured in the ordinary Sundays, in the phone calls that come at the same time every week, in the willingness to show up because you realized how precious the time was. The next Sunday, Michael called at 11:07 a.m. George answered. They talked for 30 minutes instead of 15. George found himself saying things he usually kept inside. Michael did the same. And when they hung up, both of them felt like they had just received something rare and important. George realized that he had spent years waiting for his son, but he had never really considered what it meant that his son was waiting too. Waiting for Sunday, waiting for that connection across the distance, waiting to be connected to the man who had raised him. Every Sunday after that, George answered the phone a little earlier, and he was more present because now he understood. Every Sunday might be the last Sunday, so every Sunday needed to matter.